It's been a while since we covered UPS Flight 2976, that fateful flight out of Louisville, Kentucky, Muhammad Ali International Airport to Honolulu, Hawaii, that crashed shortly after takeoff, taking the life of 15 people, including everybody on board the airplane that day. The NTSB has gotten together now to hold a public hearing to bring in UPS, the FAA, and Boeing to hold those corporate executives' feet to the fire. They grilled them for 2 days in a row last week. I've spent the weekend going over all of it, and it was extensive. There was a 9-hour meeting and then a 3-hour meeting, and we're going to answer the question that you've had and I've had this entire time, and that question is this. If Boeing, the FAA, and UPS knew that this part had failed before, resulting in the death of 273 people. Remember American Airlines Flight 191 in 1979 out of Chicago's O'Hare Airport? It was the same failure, the same engine, the left engine, that time on the DC-10, now on the MD-11, taking the lives of that many people. Why didn't they do something to prevent it from happening again? We already know how this happened. This hearing is all about why this happened. Let me take you back to the hearing this past week and answer two questions primarily. Why? And the other question is, could this accident have been prevented? Let me review for you what happened last November. Here's a picture of the airplane taking off. Now, this is a perspective from behind. You can see the aircraft is already in trouble. The engine has already started to come off the left wing. There's a fireball. It's rolling down the runway. They're trying to get airborne. I'm going to stop it right there. They can't quite get airborne. They get into the air maybe 20, 25 feet. Now, this next perspective is you can see the airplane now descending into the building where the majority of the people were that perished in this crash. And as it descends into the building, it cartwheels and you see the huge fireball. That's just an awful tragedy. That's what happened back in November of last year. I want to show you now another perspective on this. This is what the NTSB showed. This is from in front of the airplane. As you take a look at this video before I even started, you can see that the left engine, and let me circle that right there, that left engine is already begun to depart the aircraft. It's canted up. See the right engine? It's where in the proper orientation, but that left engine has already broken off. I'll explain how now that broke off because the NTSB went into detail now in these hearings this past week on exactly what part failed that caused that to happen, but it already starts to come up. Let's run the video. Stop right there. You can see that the engine has completely departed the wing and it's starting to fly straight up. There's an explosion that takes place because the fuel lines were broken. And of course, all that pressure, the fuel coming out, the heat causes a fire. Now, here's what doomed the flight. This engine coming off the wing is not what doomed the flight. What doomed the flight is when this engine coming apart as it was and all the parts that came off with it fought out or damaged the number 2 engine. That's the engine that's in the tail back here. This airplane, the MD-11, can fly on 2 engines. It can climb on 2 engines, but it can't climb on one. And so they've lost the left engine, the number 1 engine. They're losing the number 2 engine because of the number 1 engine. That leaves them with the number 3 engine, and that's not enough thrust at this gross weight for them to get airborne. You can see they're attempting to get airborne, but now they begin to lose lift as this thing continues to go over the top of the airplane. You can see it there, well over the top. That's the point where it FODs out foreign object debris or foreign object damages the number 2 engine, which stops producing thrust or begins to roll back. There he goes. It's flying over the top of the aircraft. 2 engines now are lost. The crew is trying to continue airborne. You can see they're airborne by about maybe 10, 15 feet. They're just barely off the ground. The crew is heroic here in their attempt to get this airplane to fly. And right there, that engine ends up over in the grass on the right side of the runway as they're struggling to control their airplane, and they simply don't have enough thrust to get this thing into the air. Now, let's review some photos now for this NTSB investigation, because the NTSB took a lot of detail, and it's detail that we already know, but they're getting to the question why, and they're about to get to that in a minute, but they wanted to show us all of the facts that went into this. So here is the first schematic that they put out of the wing pylon that failed on this aircraft. Now remember, it's the same thing that happened back in 1979 with American Airlines Flight 191. So this pylon right here in blue fails. What does that look like up close? Well, it's got three mounting points: the forward mount, the aft mount, and a thrust fitting. It's right behind that forward mount. All three of those things they're super heavy duty, right? And they're holding on to that super heavy engine that's producing all that thrust. The aft mount is the one that failed. Here's what it looks like. All right, so you've got this thing. This is called a clevis, this part right up here. The clevis holds on to, and this is part of the clevis, right? It holds on through this bolt and this bushing and this collar and this nut, a grease fitting right here. That's where you inject grease into it. The whole thing kind of moves a little bit. It's designed to do that. It's not meant to be, so strictly in place that it would crack. It needs to move around a little bit. That's what the grease is there for. All right. And that whole assembly holds that engine on. Now, inside of that assembly is this spherical bearing. That spherical bearing is inside an outer race. So there's the bearing and the race. This thing is called a monoball, and it's got a little groove right down it, right? That groove on the outside keeps it in place. It's also designed to jiggle a little bit, move around a little bit. Inside, it's all covered with grease, and it's designed to relieve and to distribute the stress of the engine on that wing pylon. Here's another look at it. There is the outer part of it. There's an outer groove. There's the inner groove. Those two things fit together. And if you could think about this bearing right here, it just kind of goes back and forth as it adjusts as necessary to distribute the stress. But if it stops doing that for some reason, you can get any sort of cracking along here. Now, what was the current, or what was at the time, the inspection schedule on this particular piece on the airplane? It was every 6 years, every 72 months. My opinion, I think that's completely inadequate. I think this thing needs to be inspected at least every year, maybe even every 6 months, especially given the history of it from that American Airlines accident way back when. But in Boeing's infinite wisdom, they decided every 6 years was good enough. By the way, this bearing right here was lubricated, greased just a month prior to the accident. So somebody had placed some eyeballs on it. Apparently it looked okay. They greased it, and away we go. Here we go. Here's what it looks like, and here's what happened. So now that spherical bearing that I just showed you, here is the red line and the yellow line are both sides of that groove that it sits in its assembly with. All right, it cracked. The blue part right here is how it came apart. That's exactly where it came apart. I'll show you the actual one here in just a second, but it came apart. It got a stress fracture, and all of the thrust and all of the stress on it over the years caused it to crack. Then the outer clevis, the thing that's holding it in, it cracked in one of two places. So that assembly that I just showed you, that one sat right inside this clevis right here. And over time, as it came apart, it caused just too much stress, and that whole thing let loose. As it let loose, that's when that aft mount let go. And as it let go, the engine producing all of that thrust just rotated up in this direction. And as it did that, it just simply snapped the two forward assembly points. All right, here's what it looks like after they put it all back together. So this thing right here is that wing clevis that we were just talking about. All right, let's go back to this one. That's this part right here. That's what it looks like in reality. Here's everything put back together. And again, you can see how it broke right along this line right here, that spherical bearing. That's the part that got inspected every 6 years. Unbelievable what happens here. Now here's another look at the parts, right? You can see how they broke off right here. That's the top part. That's the clevis right there. And that's the part right in here. All of that came apart, and that's what caused all of the damage. So having said that, now we know what happened, but why. And that's the big question I want to answer in the rest of this video. All right, I want to show you now a failure timeline. And this was, the NTSB showed this at the hearing. Who knew what, when, and what, if anything, did they do about it? That's the biggest question. Who knew what, when, and if anything, what did they do about it? Did Boeing know about it? Did UPS know about it? Did the FAA know about it? And the answer to this is yes, to all of the above. They all knew something at some point. Was this a cover-up? Hold on to that for a minute. I'm going to come back to that. I've got thoughts on that. I'll share those with you at the end. Let me show you a timeline now. This timeline was what they showed at the NTSB hearing just this past week. It's the MD-11 wing pylon aft mount spherical bearing history of reported outer race fractures. All right, what does this mean to you and me? Starting back in July of 2002, right up here in the left-hand side of this diagram is the first reported fractured race. That thing, the clevis and the spherical bearing, that thing is the outer and the inner part's called a race. And that's what they're looking at. That's what they inspect every 6 years. The first reported fracture of this was not on this particular airplane, but in the fleet in general. The MD-11 fleet was back in 2002. 2002 was the first reported. This little indication that says B here means that it was reported to Boeing. Here's the big picture on all of this. There were 10 failures over the next 20 years that were identified before an airplane took off. So during routine maintenance inspections or non-routine maintenance inspections, maybe they were just lubricating the spot, they noticed a fracture. 10 altogether in 20 years. What did they do with that information? Out of those 10 failures, 10 of them, only 4 of them were reported to the FAA. But 4 of them were reported to the FAA. So the FAA knew about at least 4 of these fractures. Let's go all the way back to 1979 and all those people that died. That should have gotten everybody's attention. 7 out of these 10 reported failures were reported directly to Boeing. Why not all 10? Folks, I don't know. 7 out of 10 were reported to Boeing. What did Boeing do with that? Well, hold on to that for a second. The last one in December of 2022 wasn't reported to anybody at all, the FAA or Boeing. Somebody looked at it. They said, yep, there's a fracture. And apparently they went out and they repaired it. They fixed it, but they didn't report it to anybody. So 7 out of the 10 went to Boeing. 4 out of the 10 went to the FAA. There's plenty of people now that have plenty of responsibility that should have stepped in and done something about it. Hats off to the people at FedEx. All right. Now you're thinking, well, this is a UPS accident. No, most of these reports on this timeline were from FedEx. FedEx flies the MD-11 as well with cargo. So FedEx was almost exclusively the person that reported all of these either to the FAA or to Boeing. All right. Now, what's the big culprit here? Back in 2008, right in the middle of all of this from 2002 to 2022 with all those fractured bearings coming apart and FedEx almost exclusively reporting them to the FAA and Boeing. Boeing came out with this service bulletin and they write at the top of this service bulletin, and I quote, "A review of the spherical bearing failure by Boeing determined that the failure will not result in a safety of flight condition." Wow. Wow. Okay. The key word here, and they use it twice, the only repeated word in that first sentence is the word failure. It failed. There were 10 failures. 7 of them Boeing knew about. Another 4 the FAA knew about. And Boeing comes out in the middle of all of this. Okay, they didn't have all 10 at that point, but they had enough based on going back to 1979 and the American Airlines crash. They had enough of those to say, hey, wait a minute, let's take this a little bit more seriously. But they say that the bearing failure will not cause a safety of flight condition. Wow. Okay. I don't understand that at all. I don't understand how they come up with that conclusion. Boeing's recommendation in 2008 was this: don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just, status quo. So my conclusion on after listening to the NTSB report, looking at all this information, that timeline, the reports that were made, Boeing's non-action here in the middle of it, my conclusion is this accident falls just short of a cover-up. And I know it's easy to point a finger and say that there was a cover-up. A cover-up implies that they absolutely positively knew, and they went in some smoke-filled back room and they said, hey, we can't let the public know about this. We've got to cover it up, right? There was some sort of evil intent behind it to cover it up. I think this falls much more into the category of incompetence than it does an actual cover-up. We're assuming too much on the part of these people that they would be clever enough to actually cover it up. I think it was just incompetence. Let me show you now. This was played at the hearing just the other day. And let me get to the point here in the video. Jennifer Hominy grills the UPS CEO, and she asks him a question. And let me know what you see in this question via his answer. Listen to this.
UPS, are you confident that another accident would occur? Are you confident it wouldn't occur?
No. The reason why is we rely on the FAA and Boeing's determination.
I mean, they had.
She asked him point blank, are you confident that another accident like this won't happen? His answer is, no, we're not. But not because of us, but because of the FAA and Boeing. You ask the same question to the FAA, they're going to say, well, we're not sure it wouldn't happen again because of UPS and Boeing. You ask Boeing that question, they're going to say FAA and UPS. This is as old as dirt, my friends. Finger pointing and blame assessing. The FAA, Boeing, and UPS have to do better. Why? Why do they have to do better? Let me show you why. There's the faces of 15 people that deserve a better answer. Well, now you know. I'm Captain Steve.